Jake Harry, and well, we got kind of a shorter slate today, man. It's not as much as we usually have. Bit of a slow Thursday, 2-game early slate, 6-game late slate, and if you haven't gotten your PGA lineups in, I don't think that locks till noon. So there's that as well.
Yeah, a bunch of stuff going on today. A little two gamer for MLB, and I haven't played PGA yet. I might though, depending on what time we get off the stream, and see if there's any secondary contests that are appealing. We've obviously got some really good PGA content here and projections and ownership and all that, so might take advantage.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at it today. I usually don't get in PGA unless I remember to get in it, and you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I'm not very good at it. Our content's great. I just follow them, and when I do well, it's because of our guys. But I looked at it around 8 o'clock, and everything was still open. So I said, "All right, jump in here, play some PGA." It is really fun playing PGA, especially when you get 6 guys through the cut. But
I don't know what that's like.
all right. Before we jump into the games, we will touch on the 2-game early slate, and then we'll hit on the 6-game main, because there are some good-sized contests for this early slate. And I'm assuming there are 2 pitchers that are just going to be owned literally everywhere, but we'll get into it. Before we do that, let's take a look at the lineup study. Who do you want to talk about?
Yeah, there's a couple things we can talk about. Some tilting early games yesterday, at least the latter part of the slate. Adam and I both looking for a bunch of Cubs, and Adam had a ton of really good lineups, a ton of lineups that cashed. So this was yesterday's early slate if anybody wants to follow along. He was pretty heavy on the Cubs. You can see his top 3 lineups all were 5-man Cub stacks with Verlander, 2 of them with Velasquez and Clark. So he had all the right pieces, just needed a little bit more from the Cubs. He was actually in a pretty good position to take this down. So I was rooting for him. I was rooting for myself. I was down here somewhere. I only played 20 lineups in this tournament. But the one thing that I want to talk about in this is Adam cashed 78 lineups. And this is always interesting to me, just pointing out how many lineups you cashed compared to how much money you made. He didn't have a top 10 finish, but you'd think 78 lineups, he would, be around 1.5xing or doubling his money. $470 on a $2,200, $2,250 investment.
And Jake, there were people every day, but yesterday as well, we discussed it before the show, that cashed 68, 70 lineups and were down $400.
Yeah, our friend Manny, 63 lineups, like as good as you can play, really, and lost $400. So it just goes to show how tough this tournament is with the top-heavy nature of it. Yeah, really, really tough. But he also had a bunch of Cubs. So a bunch of us are rooting for the Cubs here late. And I don't recognize a lot of the winners here near the top. But have you looked at this $8 rally cap tournament at all on DraftKings that they've been running? Because this is a tournament I actually really like. It's a good structure. It's only $5K to first.
So one thing I've found is DraftKings seems to do that with the $8 contest, not just for baseball, but for all sports. The $8 in NFL last year was awesome. Mm-hmm. That was one that I would max every week because there was actually a legitimate chance of not losing your ass if you don't take top 10. Oh, yeah. If you remember that contest, it was really solid. I think it was 25K to first, but then second was like 15 and 10. It was scaled nicely. I think like 22% of all entries cashed. So maybe it's just the way I'm remembering the $8, but I know in baseball it's usually better. In football it's usually better. They seem to go with the $8 with a smoother pay scale structuring.
Yeah, so I'm probably gonna, the next time they run this $8, I'm probably gonna forego putting my 20 in the 15 or 16 or 18, whatever they change it to each day, and just put more entries into this.
Sure.
Some familiar names at the top here. Tom took this down. 110 lineups was the max in this tournament. Tom only had 30. So he's going up against 110 from some really good players, Chipotle Addict, Alex, Adam, Mr. Goodseats, like all these familiar names. Tom took it down with 30, and he only cashed 4. So just a classic, like he just pulled an Alex here. Cashed 4 lineups out of 30. One of them was the winner.
I mean,
Cardinals.
Tom's one of the best players out there, man. And if anyone listening doesn't know who he is, Tom is one of the head men here at Awesemo.com.
Yes, incredible player in a variety
He's
of
behind
different
the
sports.
scenes. You know, a lot of people don't exactly know who he is.
Yep, exactly. And I saw he's been doing this recently where he's not playing the max in a lot of these tournaments. I don't know if he's doing that on purpose, like if he's deliberately doing that or what, but it's something I've been experimenting with as well. I think it's an interesting strategy. We always talk about maxing tournaments if you can, but if you can't max tournaments, you can still get a variety of good lineups with 20 or 30 lineups.
He proved it yesterday.
Yeah, so interesting stuff. But yeah, that's those were the two slates from yesterday.
All right, good stuff. That's our lineup study. I think it's about time for us to jump on into the early slate. Again, 2 games on the early, 6 games on the main. We're not going to spend a ton of time here, Jake. And as we always do, when we have these short early slates on this Thursday strategy show, we don't need to cover it game by game. Let's take a look at the pitchers, see how they break down for us, and then see what we can. The big thing here, as you would agree, it's not about who's the best play on paper, because it's usually pretty evident just by look. I mean, I was laying in bed when I woke up today, and I went on DraftKings and I just looked at this contest. I pulled it up on the app, and I was like, all right, well, it took me, maybe 5 seconds to know exactly which pitchers were going to be as chalky as they come. Now, granted, 2-game slate, but probably even more so for this 2-gamer than other ones. So you've got the Mets hosting San Diego, Pittsburgh, and St. Louis. I'm assuming you looked at this and saw the exact same thing with the exact 2 pitchers I saw.
Are you talking DeGrom? Well, DeGrom for sure. 11-4 on DK. FanDuel, he's 10-9. Yahoo, let's see. That's an all-day slate, but he's $54 over there. So he's affordable all over the place. And then Musgrove, I'm guessing, is a favorite for 5,800. Is that who you're talking about?
That's exactly what I was thinking. I mean, can I be wrong? I guess, but it seems very unlikely that DeGrom and Musgrove are not the 2 clearly highest owned pitchers on this slate, especially given Musgrove's price point, especially given how he's always chalk when he's this cheap. Yeah, I don't know how it doesn't go DeGrom Musgrove in the large majority of lineups.
I would say if I'm multi-entering here, whether it's 5 lineups or 150, it's going to be basically all my lineups will have DeGrom, just because you're looking for the raw points here. And he's just so likely to outscore all these other guys by 10 plus points on DK and whatever, 15, 20 on FanDuel.
I mean, I've already made some lineups for this, and if you just look at how it breaks down, you can easily get DeGrom and whatever and build lineups that are nice. I mean, it doesn't prohibit you from doing anything, which is exactly why it seems entirely pointless to get away from DeGrom here in a stellar matchup. Look, I had very little Syndergaard yesterday just because he's super chalk. And as good as he is, the guy's volatile and he's really not been that great from a consistency standpoint this year. I mean, 30 fantasy points only 3 times in 19 starts. But DeGrom is totally different, man. Like, reigning NL Cy Young winner, significantly more strikeouts than Syndergaard, and really just a much better. I'm not saying Syndergaard's bad. He's not a bad pitcher. He's a good pitcher. But DeGrom is way better than Noah Syndergaard.
Yeah, just on another level. I mean, DeGrom, you could make a case that he's a top pitcher, the top pitcher in the MLB right now, 30+% K rate. He's not walking guys. He's got a 111 whip. I mean, every number you look at is going to be near the top 3. Oh, what is it? Where's his xFIP here? 331 xFIP. So really, it's only him and Scherzer as far as like guys that are right at the top for guys that are pitching today. But Scherzer's not really on the slate because that Nats game is a makeup, I think.
So, hold on. I'm seeing if we can get an ownership update.
We don't have an ownership update just yet.
No, I'm seeing if we can get it.
Okay.
All right. So, looking at this slate, you got DeGrom and Musgrove. Musgrove is really unsurprisingly cheap in a spot like this. DeGrom 11-4 on DraftKings. Musgrove is coming in at 5-8. So you have that. By the way, Tom just let us know ownership will be out in about 2 minutes. So
Cool.
that'll give us a good idea of what we're looking at. And then over on Yahoo, you have pretty. What did you say? It's an all day, right? So they don't have the actual early slate alone. DeGrom's 54. What is Musgrove?
Musgrove on Yahoo right now is $39.
39. Okay. And then on FanDuel, it's kind of not necessary. Like DeGrom is just the guy. So unless you're just trying to be super different, then I suppose you could look at Musgrove there. So what do you think out of the gate your approach would be with this slate on two pitcher sites, specifically DraftKings right now, because it's a 2-gamer and they've got these big contests? What do you think you see yourself doing here?
So there's always, like, you could always go contrarian and just take some bats against DeGrom, and I think you can take maybe a bat against DeGrom and maybe 2 bats against your pitcher in the same lineup against the other guys. So that's a way to be a little bit different that some people aren't comfortable doing. The problem is on San Diego, who do you really take? Like, if I'm building limited lineups, I wouldn't be wanting to take many San Diego bats because I'd have close to 100% DeGrom. But assuming Musgrove's going to be really chalky, we've seen him have a bunch of blowups, and the Cardinals have been hitting much better lately. I mean, even if you look at last night, but the last few nights, they've been much, much better, and they have a lot of power. So if Musgrove's going to be the clear SP2, maybe you take a lower upside guy, but a guy that is a decent real-life pitcher in Michaelis and a Cardinals stack against the probably the second chalkiest pitcher on the slate.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that at all. I told you before the show, I had a decent amount of Lyles yesterday, and that worked out great. Also, a ton of Bieber and Lopez, but what does it matter? Lyles was pretty bad, and it is not a bad matchup. The St. Louis Cardinals, like you said, have been better lately, but they've also still struggled. This active roster against righties has not been very good. And you're still down Carpenter, Ozuna, Yadi Molina. Those are 3 big names in this lineup. I think that it can be dangerous, as evidenced by yesterday explosion at PNC, but also a decent spot for Musgrove. So I really wouldn't be surprised to see either one of these go off. Like, for example, if San Diego came out and just rocked DeGrom, that would be shocking. If Musgrove came out and threw, 6 scoreless or 6 1-run innings with 7 Ks, I wouldn't be surprised. If he didn't make it out of the 4th inning, I also wouldn't be surprised.
Right. Yeah, I mean, super wide range of outcomes with a guy like Musgrove, and Lauer to some extent, I think. So if you just wanted to stack up bats too in the St. Louis-Pittsburgh game, I would assume the ownership goes DeGrom clear number 1, Musgrove clear number 2, and then Michaelis 3, Lauer 4 on the 2 pitcher sites. So just taking bats in the St. Louis-Pittsburgh game, you're going to get some sort of leverage. It's a 2-game slate. It's hard not to get leverage no matter what you're doing because everything depends so much else on every other play in the other game. So, yeah, I mean, it's difficult to try to talk about these 2-game slates, but it's nice that we have what we think is going to be a clear SP1 and one that I agree with. So you wouldn't make a case to, like, there's really no case outside of just being ultra contrarian to fade DeGrom here, right?
Right, exactly. And, usually we talk about this on 2-game slates. The ownership on pitchers is usually very concentrated, actually. There isn't a ton of separation. I assumed that we would see DeGrom and Musgrove way above everyone else. Ownership is out. I was not wrong. DeGrom on DraftKings 90% and Musgrove 66%. And then you have Michaelis at 27, Eric Lauer at 17%. So with that in mind, it really is not crazy to go DeGrom and Lauer here with Musgrove being so ridiculously popular. I mean, look, on paper, the pairing is undoubtedly and clearly DeGrom Musgrove. On paper, there's no disputing that. But we can't pretend that Musgrove is some elite, Cy Young candidate either.
Exactly. So
All right.
this is good to see. I mean, you were dead on for ownership. I think you just take DeGrom and you mix in the rest of the three guys. You don't have to fade Musgrove. I don't think either of us are advocating for that if you're playing multiple lineups. But if I was playing one lineup, I'm pretty certain it would be DeGrom with Michaelis and at least a few Cardinals, or maybe even DeGrom Lauer if I could find some cheap bats that might get me to a different lineup construction than most people.
Man, no one can predict DeGrom ownership on a 2-game slate better than me.
Yeah, DeGrom. Yeah, it's not like we got
Tough
DeGrom,
task.
Scherzer, Snell. It's
tough job, but someone's got to do it. As far as hitters go, I mean, this is the thing that sucks. Like, I do like the chalk a lot today, and that's kind of unfortunate. I just force myself away. Like, I like the Mets here against Lauer. That's pretty much the only team I like a lot. But I just keep going back to your point on the Cardinals. That does probably feel like the clear bet. You could say the Padres are the best leverage spot, but if we're talking about in terms of probability, the best leverage spot has to be the Cardinals.
Yeah, I think that's your easiest path to success here, is if the Cardinals go off and you knock out 65 or 70% of the field with Musgrove.
Right, because even you look at the ownership, right, on batters, J.D. Davis and Wilson Ramos are 1 and 2 respectively among all hitters, both of them on the Mets. Pete Alonso is 4th. Ahmed Rosario is like 7th. So they're the chalkiest team right now. And I guess the only other team that comes close is probably because that's just a couple of them. They're the chalkiest team by far. So, okay, let's wrap up this early slate.
Okay.
We've got our pitchers. We've got DeGrom. We've got Lauer. We've got Michaelis. We've got Musgrove. If you came in late and you're just tuning in now, DeGrom and Musgrove are 90 and 66% respectively on DraftKings. You're making one lineup. You're throwing it not in the cash games, but tournaments, right? Single entry, 3 max, whatever. What are you doing?
I think I'm playing Cardinals. So
Me too.
this would kind of be how I would build. DeGrom would be clearly in for me in a single entry. If the one person that doesn't play DeGrom in the tournament or whatever wins it, like, I'll just take the loss there.
Yeah, you'll eat that.
I mean, whatever. If DeGrom gets lit up by the Padres, but after that, I would be putting in some Cardinals. So on the lineup builder here, I would probably just be putting in the best bats. So Fowler's a lefty for 3,700. He's going to be popular. So is Edman, but I kind of like those two guys in the stack. And then maybe Goldschmidt, DeJong. After that, maybe a 4-4 with this Pittsburgh game. I'm not even sure if I could fit in Lauer. Then it gets pretty difficult to fit in a 4-4 with the Pirates because they don't have that many cheap bats. But I guess I would just be mixing and matching after that. But I would definitely have some Cardinals here in a single entry because you might even see Musgrove's ownership be higher than 65% in single entry tournaments.
I think you're right on that. Yeah, I think it's a good point. Okay, there you have it. That's the early slate. Kind of an interesting one, only because ownership on pitching and probably hitting for the Mets is going to be so high that if they don't do what they're expected to do, you're already in a really good spot. If they do, you're toast. Move on to the main slate.
Yep.
But all right, good stuff. Let's talk about the 6-game late slate or main slate here. You've got one 7 o'clock game. That's it. 2 8 o'clock games and 3 10 p.m. games. So kind of an interesting configuration of scheduling here. The Boston Red Sox face the New York Yankees. You've got Masahiro Tanaka and Rick Porcello at Fenway Park. This probably wouldn't surprise anyone, but both teams are expected to score a fair amount of runs, and that's kind of what you get in 2019, right? I mean, I don't know, just a couple of years ago with Tanaka and Porcello on the mound, even though they're not amazing, both of these teams would be like 4.5, 4.6. Yankees are 5.8. Red Sox are 5.3.
Yeah, I mean, two guys that have struggled to miss bats against two really talented teams. So Tanaka's K percentage only 20% this season. That seems like it's way down from last year.
Way down.
Swinging strike rate under 11%.
That's the oddest part, because even when his K rate was down, at times his swinging strike rate was still like 15%.
Right. And you would see those spike 10K games every once in a while, and you haven't really seen them too often from Tanaka, and the earned runs have been the biggest issue, especially when you're not getting a lot of strikeouts. So I don't know. I mean, it's tough to want to play Tanaka here. We've got two other options in the next set of games that I think are going to be more appealing in the 10K plus range, especially versus the Red Sox. It's not a good K matchup. It's a terrible matchup as far as giving up just runs, 5.3 implied total for Boston here. So I don't see myself getting to Tanaka. And then Porcello, I mean, this is about as bad of a matchup as you can get. I guess the one good thing is that there's going to be a fair amount of righties in this Yankees lineup, but Porcello hasn't really struck out anyone this entire season, and you've got a near 6 implied total here for the Yankees. That's one of the highest on the slate. If you're fading the Yankees, that's one thing, or going underweight, but I don't think I need to go as far as playing a lot of Rick Porcello here.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Not against this just lethal juggernaut of an offense in New York. I'll pass on that. Tanaka, though, you're right. It hasn't gone well for him this year, and I kind of don't know what to think about him anymore. He's always been an enigmatic pitcher, where his results are just so up and down that you bite the bullet and play him and hope that he's good. But now against Boston, I just have a very difficult time landing on either of these guys. I mean, Tanaka has a couple real high upside starts, like monster games this year, but everything outside of that has been really, really underwhelming. I don't expect him to get back on track and start forming any consistency against Boston. Now, with that said, Jake, like I mentioned, both teams are pretty high totals, 5.8 for the Yankees, 5.3 for the Red Sox. What are you doing about hitters here? Is this a spot that you'd like to target bats?
Yeah, I love targeting bats here. I think, especially on the way this pitching slate is, first of all, I don't think it's a good pitching slate at all, but you're going to see these expensive guys, these raw point leaders, Barrios and Giolito, probably get a lot of ownership, and that's what we're showing right now. And that's just going to make it so people are playing less Yankees and less Red Sox, these 5K plus hitters. So I like how they're priced. They're not going to be like a perfect optimizer play, but giving priority to hitters, I'm seeing a lot of ownerships that I really like here on all these hitters. No one above 16% right now. On a 6-game slate, I think that's pretty appealing. So I think the Yankees are the stack I would rather go to, but I also really love Mookie Betts, and JD Martinez is 4,500. So I just love this game as a whole. I think it's my favorite for hitting.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. I think everyone from Osmo liked the Yankee-Minnesota game yesterday. And again, once we get the top stack tool, once that's updated, you'll be able to see, what ownership looks like. I mean, yesterday the Yankees had a 14% top stack probability, and I don't know what their actual ownership was, but the projected ownership was like 7%, which is, 7% is high, but not even a little bit when you consider their chances of being the top stack. And that's what I think you might see today. I wouldn't be surprised, just because Tanaka and Porcello generally they're not great pitchers, but they're not usually guys that you load up on bats against, or at least you don't see the field do that very often. What about the White Sox in Minnesota? You have Lucas Giolito and Jose Barrios on the mound. So a pretty interesting pitching matchup here. And both of these guys are very good pitchers. Jose Barrios, not exactly the best fantasy pitcher in the world, and I think he is routinely overpriced for some odd reason, at least on DraftKings. Actually, on FanDuel, he's the most expensive pitcher. And then on Yahoo, he's also the most expensive. Now, he's not crazy expensive. He's 48 on Yahoo and 93 on FanDuel. But, man, 10-6 on Barrios on DraftKings. He is a good pitcher. But it's so, and once in a while, like if you're actually talking about his ceiling, he'll go out there and give you, an 8 inning, 10K game from time to time. But the probability that he hits his ceiling from week to week is pretty damn low. But he's got to match up with the White Sox. So how do you reconcile that?
Right. I don't understand the price here. I get that DraftKings has to price someone up just so it's not just pick and choose whoever you want to play in your lineups. But Barrios at 10-6, it's a good strikeout matchup, but he's been a below average strikeout pitcher this season, 21.5% overall.
He's also been markedly worse or on the road for his career, and that's no different this year either.
Yeah, so he just keeps, like, at some point you kind of have to buy into those splits.
Yep. Been 3 or 4 years now consecutively every year.
Yeah, and it's just massive splits. Just elite or not, close to elite at home, and he's just kind of an average pitcher on the road and has a lot more blow up starts. So I'm looking to get leverage here on the White Sox bats. I think Barrios is a good pitcher, but I don't think I don't think you're getting a really good edge playing Barrios here at almost 50% ownership on DraftKings, especially for 10-6. And that's going to handcuff the rest of my lineups, like the hitters I can get as well. So I think I'd be more interested in getting to some Giolito, but the problem with him also is it's a bad matchup. He's got a ton more swing and miss upside he showed this season, almost a 30% K rate on the year, but he's also getting a lot of ownership. So I don't know that I'm going to get to either of these guys tonight if this ownership sticks. If Giolito's comes down, especially as people start to see the value in the Twins bats, then maybe I get to some more Giolito, but right now, I don't see myself getting to either of these guys, at least where the field's at.
Do you have a pitcher or two in mind that you do see yourself getting to over these guys?
Not really. So I think I'm just going to pay down as much as possible. Like I'm scrolling through and, man, every time I look at these names, I just, it's disgusting. But like everyone's priced up, it seems like. So I don't even know. It's pretty brutal. Like Plutko for 6,700, not the biggest upside arm. Same thing with Montgomery. I don't even know how deep he's going to go, but that's the problem. There's not really anywhere to pivot. So I'm hoping my pitcher exposure is pretty flat across the board, and I just get a bunch of different lineup constructions.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you at all. But is there? Okay, so you mentioned leverage on these White Sox bats, and when you're talking about ownership on it's a 6-game slate, mm-hmm. right? Yeah. On a 6-game slate, there's only so much you can expect when it comes to trying to get away from the popular pitchers, but it does feel like on this slate, some of these guys are just popular. Now look, I'm more than willing to play good pitchers based on talent over matchup in the right spots. I know you are as well. Mm-hmm. Bieber for me yesterday, the reason I like Bieber so much is because he was easily far and away the best pitcher on that slate. Best K rate, swinging strike, called plus swinging, xFIP, walk rate, led the slate in all of that. So even if Toronto wasn't the best matchup, Bieber was the best pitcher. But I'll be honest, and the Minnesota Twins scare me a lot more than the Toronto Blue Jays do.
Yeah, the Twins are tough, as you've seen these last few games, as we've seen all season. I mean, they're on pace to break the home run record. So that's just not fun to go up against, especially when you're almost 11K. So Giolito, I think he's actually really cheap on Yahoo. I think he's like 47. 47 on Yahoo. So much easier to get to him there, but you're also going to get, he's going to be more popular over there as well. So it's really difficult to pay these prices, especially when you've got some cheap Twins bats on the other side with a ton of power. No one above 4,500 in this Twins lineup on DraftKings.
Are they really on pace to break the home run record?
Yeah, I think they have the most home runs through 92 games or something.
Wow.
They were, at least. They're just hammering everything.
They really are. It's pretty remarkable how good they've been. And they're not really slowing down. Speaking of slowing down, though, Lucas Giolito has still been good, but we did see a little bit of a downturn in strikeouts here. And, he had 9 last game, but 5, 5, 4. His swinging strike stuff had come down a little bit. Granted, some of that is a product of matchups, but I think we all knew after the first couple months of the season that as good as he looked, and as good as I believe he is, there was no way Lucas Giolito was going to sustain those insane numbers that he had running through May and June.
Right, and you've seen him come down just a little bit, so I think he's going to be good. This isn't how good he's going to be. He's going to get better, but it's just such a tough matchup to say, even with the bad pitching all over the place, to say, yeah, I want to play me some 30% owned Giolito against the Twins, who are cheap on the other side.
Berrios on DraftKings is 47% right now, projected ownership. That's pretty high. 41% on FanDuel and 61% on Yahoo. Not only the highest projected pitcher, but highest projected owned overall player. I get it, Jake, and I know we're spending a lot of time on this game, but some of these others we won't. And I think this is kind of a crucial part to understanding the slate. That's really, really, really high ownership on a good pitcher, but also a pitcher whose strikeout rate is 21.5% on the year. That's crazy that he's that expensive and getting that much ownership. He has a 21.5% K rate. Now, look, I know the White Sox can inflate that. They're tied for the highest K rate on the year versus right-handed pitching. But 10-6 for a guy with a 21.5% K rate, that's below league average in 2019.
Yeah, and you look at his just DK game logs. I mean, this isn't really the type of pitcher that's shown huge spikes in strikeouts, or really, he has one start over his last 7 with over 20 DK points. So, I mean, I don't know, maybe he just needs to get you 20 tonight for him to be worth it on this slate. But you're also going to need some cheap bats, and it looks like the expensive bats that we talked about, at least in last game, are kind of where I want to put my priorities tonight.
I agree with that entirely. If you had to pick, which team do you like more for hitting purposes, White Sox or Minnesota? Because I'm going White Sox here at that ownership on Berrios.
Yeah, I think I'm going White Sox as well. Obviously the Twins are better hitters. They're more scary, but Giolito's the kind of guy that I think could shut them down just because of his swing and miss stuff.
But you'd agree both teams, I think you already mentioned, both teams merit consideration here on this slate.
Yep, 100%. All
right. This game could be the deciding game of the slate, I think.
Oh, I think it has to be.
Right?
Yeah. There's just so much. So Giolito, I thought I saw 30%. He's only 20% owned.
20. Yeah,
right
20.
Now, so.
Which isn't crazy on a 6-gamer, but
no, that's not terrible.
It is a terrifying spot. It really is. Kansas City and Cleveland, Adam Plutko, Mike Montgomery. Nothing really appealing here, but because it's the strategy show and we're taking a preliminary look, and because there isn't a ton of good pitching, are you willing to give Adam Plutko a look here against Kansas City, or do you think it would be wiser for us to look elsewhere? He has a 15.7% strikeout rate on the season. It's heinous. There's no two ways around it. It's been a brutal season from a strikeout standpoint for Plutko. And then with Mike Montgomery, I mean, I don't really know what to say. I don't think there's much to say about him at all.
No, Montgomery just went 45 pitches his last start, and he's certainly not a strikeout pitcher either, and it's not a good strikeout matchup anyways. So very limited amount of outcomes that would make Montgomery worth it, even at 5,500, I think here. Looking at the Royals, they don't strike out that much versus righties. 22% for the season. That's below average. Plutko can't really get strikeouts on his own, but he's under 7K. He's going to allow me to pay up for some bats. So he's going to be in my mix for sure. Where's he owned right now compared to the rest of these guys? 21%. I mean, that
sounds about right, given the context of the slate.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense. The bottom 3 guys are the clear bottom 3, I think, for me, and Tanaka, Montgomery, and Yacobonis. I everyone else getting a little bit of ownership. But yeah, I guess Plutko is going to be in the mix for me. I probably am going to be overweight, especially if I'm going under on Barrios and possibly Giolito as well.
Okay. Man, the bats in this game, Cleveland against the left-hander in Montgomery. Kansas City, I think you could even make an argument for against Adam Plutko. Anything stand out to you?
Just Cleveland bats. They're underpriced, like by a lot. Some of these guys, Santana, 4,600, Luplow, 42, Jose Ramirez, forever in the 4K range, 4,600, and then Lindor under 5K. I don't know why. The weather here is favorable to hitting, 82 degrees, wind blowing out to left, so that's good for the righty power on Cleveland. They've got to be one of the better stacks, I think, compared to the Yankees. Like, they're going to have more ownership, I would guess, compared to the Yankees and Red Sox because they're just more affordable, and you're going to be able to jam them in with Barrios and Giolito. So I might get more Yankees than, like, Cleveland, but I love them as fillers. I think you can make a case basically 1 through 7 at the very least.
You know, we don't have ownership on Wade LeBlanc, right? We don't have ownership on LeBlanc.
Okay.
I'm assuming because it's an opener situation. I'm going to see if we can get that remedied.
Okay. Yeah, that would be actually really helpful if we had another guy.
I think it's really important that we get that LeBlanc ownership because he's facing Detroit.
All right. That's actually a good point. Really good point.
I just want to make sure we can get that because the show won't be as valuable if we don't get his ownership in there because LeBlanc is slated to get the long relief appearance here behind, who is it? Matt Whistler, I think. Yeah. And we'll get to that game. But first, let's talk about Texas and Oakland. Brett Anderson, Ariel Jurado. Dude, it's ugly out on the streets, man. I don't know what to say about this. I mean, I guess the one benefit is it's in Oakland and not Texas. Okay, I'm going to ask you this, and I'm going to be 100% serious in the question. Would you consider paying $79 on DraftKings for Brett Anderson?
I would. I definitely am.
I think I would too. He's 29 on Yahoo, by the way, which is pretty appealing given this slate.
Yeah, I think you're looking for like 15, 18 DK points. You're looking for a win and just him to eat up 6-7 innings, which he's done quite a bit. He's kind of a frustrating pitcher to stack against. So I'm not wild about Texas really at all, outside of maybe Joey Gallo at 4,700, who's probably going to go pretty low owned lefty here, but just Gallo's not in the lineup. He's not going to be in the lineup, right? He's not in the projected one.
Joey Gallo, is it?
Yeah.
It's hard.
Something happened.
I don't know. Honestly, no, because he does get. Oh no, he's out.
Yeah.
What does he have?
Gallo out. Yeah.
Okay,
that makes sense. We have him because he was in the lineup the last time they faced a lefty, but that makes sense. Okay.
Right.
He's likely to be placed on the IL. All right. Cool.
Okay.
So outside of that, pretty gross hitting, I think, here for Texas. Maybe Elvis Andrus at 4,200. But yeah, I think I'm gonna get to some Brett Anderson. The matchup versus Texas for a lefty has been a pretty good one this season, and maybe he picks up an extra strikeout or two, and he is a guy that can go deep. So the price tag is pretty bad if you just look at that in isolation, but in the context of the slate, I think he's going to be someone I get to quite a bit.
I mean, the Rangers have the 5th worst WRC plus on their active roster versus lefties. They also have the 2nd highest strikeout rate against left-handers. With Gallo being out, it's tough because on one hand, he is smoking lefties for power. On the other hand, he strikes out a lot too. But whichever replacement level player comes in his stead, it's going to be an upgrade for Brett Anderson in terms of keeping the ball in the park. So there is that. And I mean, what projected lineup you have in front of you for the Rangers?
So I'm seeing we've got Santana, Chu, Andrews, Pence, Odor, Mazzara, Forsyth, Asdrubal Cabrera, and Fedorowicz could be possible.
Yeah, not terribly threatening. Uh, it's ugly, but Brett Anderson seems like a pretty viable play here. 78 on FanDuel. So talking about FanDuel though, let's look at the ownership on this because the prices are really flat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Berrios 93, Giolito 91, Tanaka 8, Brett Anderson 7,800, Plutko 71. If we take FanDuel, filter it by position real quick, by pitcher, you have Berrios at 41. You've got Suarez at 23, Giolito at 14, and then Anderson at 9. That's low enough for me to even consider him on FanDuel today.
Yeah, I think I would consider him over there as well. Suarez also, I think, a pretty appealing option at 6,200. So, 41% on a one pitcher site to Barrios seems
crazy,
kind of crazy to me. Like, I don't know. I would just be looking to go elsewhere. He doesn't. The projections just dropped on Osmo.com. So if you guys want to check those out, if you're a premium member, feel free to go look at those. Barrios actually right now grades out as one of the better values on the slate, but everyone under 1.8 right now. I've never seen that on a slate so far this season.
Crazy. But the way I see it, it's like grading out as better value. That makes sense. You're talking about FanDuel?
I'm talking, yeah, just everywhere.
Oh, okay. But at the same time, like, it's just not crazy to think like, okay, Brett Anderson finishes with 18, Berrios finishes with 19.
Right. Exactly.
It happens so often with him, man. Is it a good matchup? Yeah. Is it a spot where he's just completely infallible and can't have a bad start? No, not even a little bit. On the other side, you've got Ariel Jurado against Oakland. There are some places I'm simply not willing to go. I think this is probably going to be one of them. Hell, I don't know. Maybe it's not the craziest idea. He is very cheap, but it's not a great spot for him, and he's just not good. But is it cheap enough for you to say, screw it, this pitching's terrible, I'll look at Jurado too?
Yeah, I think I'm going to look at Jurado as well. Looking at his projection, it's not really appealing. He's projected under 8.5 points on DK, but two pitcher site, I mean, you're looking to get 12 points here, and it's not a good strikeout matchup, but it is a pretty good park to pitch in. I don't think Jurado is like a bad pitcher, really, and so I'll take, like, I'd rather take him over Montgomery, that's for sure, and there's just no other real options in this range. I don't think you can really play Yacobonis against the Angels. So Jurado's kind of my super cheap guy that I will get to. What about you?
Yeah, it's certainly not the craziest idea. By the way, no, actually, no. You said he'll be your what?
Just like the super cheap option. I would imagine that I get to more than some of these other guys.
So for me, I don't see how it wouldn't be LeBlanc, but
fair enough.
We just ran it, and this is why I was really concerned about getting him up there. Thanks, Tom. Dude, Tom's quick on the trigger.
Oh yeah.
LeBlanc, second highest owned overall player on DraftKings.
Oof.
It's not that surprising though. It's against Detroit. It's in Seattle. Like, this is what I would expect to see. 38% on LeBlanc on DraftKings. 38%. On FanDuel, we'll go across the board here. FanDuel, 15%. It's third highest, which seems odd, right? Because you have Suarez ahead of him, but I guess I can understand that since Suarez is expected to actually start and it's Baltimore. And then on Yahoo, LeBlanc, second highest owned overall player, 49%. What do you say, Jake? It's crazy.
Man, anytime you can play 40% Wade LeBlanc, you just got to do it. But yeah, I understand it. He's kind of got the clearest path to success. Not with strikeouts, but just going up against a bad team in a good park as a big favorite. So him and Suarez right there. But what's LeBlanc's price? Is it 5,800 on DK?
5,800, yeah.
Yeah.
And then on FanDuel, On FanDuel, LeBlanc is 5,900. On Yahoo, he's 29.
So the thing about FanDuel is you're probably going to lose the opportunity for a quality start, assuming he doesn't actually get the start here.
Right.
LeBlanc.
Yeah, that's good. That's why I mentioned Suarez as a starter is more appealing. But you're right. Yeah. Uh, I watched both of these interleague games between the Tigers and Phillies, and man, they made some Phillies pitchers that have been struggling just at an unbelievable rate, made them look spectacular. Pavetta out of the bullpen, 3 innings, like 7 strikeouts. Hector Neris looked like Mariano Rivera, and Vince Velasquez looked like one of the best starters in the world. It was crazy how bad this offense is.
Yeah, I saw Velasquez's numbers yesterday. I think he had like 10, 7, maybe like, what was it? 4 strikeouts. He had 4 innings, strikeout. 8 Ks, and then I don't know what he ended up with, like 30 plus DK points.
Yeah, 5.2 innings, 9 strikeouts, no runs.
I was like, only the Tigers.
Only the Tigers, man. Maybe not even the Marlins at this point. That's how bad the Tigers are.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on hitting in this game? It's not at Globe Life. It's in Oakland. But, both of these pitchers, even though we said we'd be willing to consider them, we're under no belief that they're actually good either.
Right. I guess so. Olsen is appealing at 4,700. The rest of these guys, not very much so. $4,500 for Marcana, righty. 49 for Laureano. I think Chapman's price is fine at 48. And then you've got this Chris Davis thing we still got going on, 3,500. I just took a quick look at the game logs. I haven't heard of him doing anything, but it's pretty bad for Chris Davis right now, as we know. Just completely lost his power. But he's 3,500 on a team with Alex has him at a 5.5 implied total here against a pitcher that struggles to miss bats. So there's going to be, I don't know that I'm going to get to a ton of Oakland stacks, but I would guess I get to quite a bit of Chris Davis in fillers.
Okay. We talk about Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports here, where Anderson and Wade LeBlanc are $29. If you haven't signed up yet, you can get up to $30 in Yahoo Sports Rewards points by signing up through us at Awesemo, and it's very easy to do. The Yahoo Sports Rewards points, those YSRPs are as good as cash. Use them on the site to play any contest, win money, and you can withdraw that money as well, assuming you win. Go to awesemo.com, AWESEMO.com. On the homepage, you'll find our Spotlight Hitters article. The reason we have to do it this way in a slightly roundabout way is because we've had some issues with posting links in the YouTube chat. So go to the site. On the homepage, free content, the Spotlight Hitters article. Right when you click on that, at the top of the article, you'll see the Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports link. Click that. It'll take you there, and you can get your $30 in Yahoo Sports Rewards points when you sign up. Use the sign-up code AWESEMO, as you already know. It's Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. Lowest rake in the industry. No MME. 10 entry max on even their biggest contest. A lot of benefits and reasons to play at Yahoo. And we hope to see you over there. Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. Check out the Spotlight Hitters article. The link is on a free article right at the top of it. You'll see it when you get there. All right, Jake, 2 games to go. Baltimore and the LA Angels. Jose Suarez. And I'm pretty sure it's Jacobona's opening, but I think it's Eshelman that'll be the guy to come in here.
Gross. Once again, not a lot of great pitching options. Eshelman, a guy who's been beat up pretty good, can't get strikeouts. Kind of the story for a bunch of these pitchers on this slate. 548 xFIP on the season for Eshelman, kind of all you need to know. And then you got a team that doesn't miss bats in the LA Angels. So I think Suarez is the more appealing pitcher by a long shot here at 8,200. He's once again overpriced. He doesn't grade out as a good value, but really no one does. And he's stretched out. He's going up against Baltimore. Good matchup. Lefties versus Baltimore. A neutral park in LA here, or I guess in Anaheim. and I think there's a pretty good chance Suarez is my highest owned pitcher on the slate, but I don't know. Just looking at stuff right now, I think there's a pretty good chance of that. What do you think?
It doesn't seem ridiculous at all. Now, when you say that, do you mean highest owned on all sites? Because he's 82 on DraftKings, he's 62 on FanDuel, and on Yahoo he's what is he? Do we even hold on? Suarez, he's not listed as a starter.
Oh yeah.
Oh, he's not in the player
pool. Wow.
Because he just got recalled.
Okay.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I was talking about DraftKings, and just because
I think the pricing on players is less important tonight than it's ever been. Honestly.
100% agree. 100%. So, everyone's kind of poorly priced, and you've got a guy who's a minus 200 favorite that's going up against a pretty bad team, a team that strikes out quite a bit, and a guy who is expected to get a bunch of run support as well. 6.2 implied total Alex has him at right now. Yeah, I just think I'm going to get to Suarez a lot as my SP1, and a lot of Yankees and Red Sox and Angels, for that matter, in lineups with him.
For sure. And the reason I think you and I say that is it's not that Jose Berrios' price doesn't matter. It's kind of like if you and I aren't as high on Berrios as this field seemingly is, and his ownership is projected to be very high, it really doesn't matter if you pay, 1,000 overprice on Suarez or, 1,000 more than you should on Brett Anderson. It's really a moot point.
Exactly. Yeah, 100% agree there.
What are you doing with bats in this game? Because the LA Angels are a good baseball team, and now they got what should be. Eshelman was projected to start, and now, or he's actually announced as the starter, but now it's Jacobone. I have to believe that Eshelman will be the primary long guy here. To me, that would make the most sense. I have a tough time believing that the Angels don't have a decent day. Right now, your implied totals are, let's see here, 6.1 for the Angels, 6.1, that's solid, and 4 for the Baltimore Orioles. So as far as this slate goes as a whole, right now the highest implied run total on the entire slate is going to be the LA Angels, and then the Yankees, and then the Cleveland Indians. So that's what you have right now. Angels projected to score the most runs on the slate.
Yeah, Eshelman struggled with the long ball. You've got Ohtani, Trout, Upton, and then a bunch of guys that just don't strike out. So tons of balls in play here with Anderson Simmons. And, these secondary guys aren't super cheap, like Pujols and Calhoun and Kevin Smith. But I think the Angels are right up there as a top 2 or 3 stack at the very least. But, yeah, it's a really, really good spot. And then on the other side, Trey Mancini is the one bat I'm targeting against Suarez if he starts to get a little bit too chalky.
So nice. We got Top Stack Tool updated on awesemo.com. Use the code use the promo code. I say that every show, Jake. Every single show. Everyone. Use the promo code MLB Strategy when you sign up. All one word, MLB Strategy, to get 50% off your first month of an Awesemo Plus subscription. That's 50% off your first month by using the sign-up code MLB Strategy. You got the Top Stack Tool, the ownership projections, player projections, all 3 of which Alex Baker, Awesemo himself, developed, created, and uses every single day for his own lineups. You got the lineup builder, the Fantasy Cruncher add-on, lineup study that Jake goes over at the beginning of the show. The deep dive from Adam and myself that we switch off every day, put a whole lot of time into that. Well worth a read, as well as articles from you, Jake, from Josh, and great content from other sports, whether it be PGA with Ben Rasa, Jason Russling, so many of them. Any sport that DraftKings or FanDuel or Yahoo offers DFS for, we've got content for you. I'm talking WNBA, PGA, tennis, Summer League. You know it. We've got it at awesemo.com. MLB Strategy will get you 50% off your first month. And say what's up in the premium Slack chat when you join. We'll show you around, show you what's good over here at awesemo.com. So anything else on this one you want to talk about?
Just that the Angels look like they are pretty under-owned right now. And
yeah, second highest ownership, but low owned in context, again, with the slate.
Yep. So I love that. Just expensive bats all around for me. That's what I'm looking for.
Look at the Yankees ownership compared to their top stack probability.
I know, man. I don't want to talk about them too much. I want them all for myself. But yeah, they're double. Their top stack percentage right now is double what their ownership is, like 2.5 times what their ownership is. So I'm hoping that sticks.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I guess if there's just going over this, you've got 6 teams with the top stack probability above 10%, which isn't super surprising, just, given how weak the slate is. The ones that stand out the most in terms of a disparity from top stack probability and ownership are the Yankees, Angels, and Cleveland Indians.
I'm surprised to see the Indians there. Once we get Detroit and Seattle, maybe things get shifted around just a little bit. I don't think there's a line out for that game yet because of the LeBlanc situation. But, I mean, I'm just seeing, the Yankees really stuck out. And then Cleveland was a little bit weird because they are good value. You usually see teams with one of the higher chances of being the top value go a little bit over-owned relative to their top stack percentage. But right now, Cleveland looks like one of the better spots if this ownership sticks.
Agreed. Let's get to the last one here, man. Detroit and Seattle. Wade LeBlanc, probable long guy here, and Drew Verhagen. Now, Drew Verhagen is actually projected to get ownership, and as crazy as it sounds, I understand it. Now, he's clearly not going to be considered on FanDuel. You don't need to. You have LeBlanc and Suarez, who are both really cheap. On Yahoo, I also don't think you need to do it because you have who did I say? LeBlanc and I can't remember the other one, but there's another guy. Oh, Anderson at $29. So that makes things a little bit less likely. That actually, I wonder if Verhagen's even on Yahoo. He's not. So he's not on there, and neither is Suarez.
Oh man. All right. So I did not realize.
There are literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 9 available pitchers on Yahoo.
Yeah, making it tough pitcher
Who
slating.
am I missing? 10 because Eshelman's there. Sorry.
Yeah, I didn't realize how stretched out Verhagen was. So I think, they're probably not going to push him here, but he threw 95 pitches on the 18th, so a week ago today. If he's 4K and he's going to, he could go deep, I get that there's a huge implied total against him, but you're not taking a huge risk for 4K here. So unless we hear something about like a pitch count where they're only going to let him go 2 or 3 innings, then I'm probably going to have at least over the field of Verhagen. And then I can't see a scenario in which I get to almost 40% LeBlanc on 2 pitcher sites here. He's just not a good strikeout guy, and a bunch of righties here for the Tigers expected in the lineup. Maybe 1 or 2 lefties in this Tigers lineup we're looking at. So I'll be looking to take Nick Castellanos. Wow. Miguel Cabrera under 3K. I don't even know if I want to take Cabrera in his
he's been bad.
Form. But like Candelario, Josh's boy, and Candelario are 2 guys I like quite a bit. Even John Hicks at catcher for 2,300.
Dude, I watched Heimer Candelario yesterday. No, 2 days ago. No, maybe it was yesterday. Swing on a pitch in a full count that was so far out of the zone that he fell over home plate. It was one of the worst swings I've ever seen in my life. That guy stinks. He is, oh man, he is atrociously bad. But look, nobody's saying that LeBlanc is a great pitcher. And I think you made a good point here. He strikes out lefties at 25%. Righties, mind you, he's faced way more righties than lefties. Righties at 14%. But he does have the park to his advantage. And this Detroit Tigers team is so dreadfully bad that, as I mentioned, they can really make any pitcher look at least decent. And Wade LeBlanc is okay. He's not good. He's not bad. Tigers have the third highest K rate in the league against left-handed pitching. And given the park that we have here at T-Mobile, they also have the third lowest isolated slugging in the league, ahead of only the Pirates and the Marlins versus lefties. So, I mean, there is certainly a path to a strong game from Wade LeBlanc. It's just whether or not you want to go heavy on that ownership with how popular he's going to be.
Right. I think if LeBlanc's a righty here and you just flip everything, like the 20+% K rate versus righties or something like that, I'd probably play just a ton of him. But Detroit is a much better team versus lefties. At least they're more difficult to strike out. Like, they're not just free Ks all over the place versus lefties. So that's my only problem with LeBlanc.
What about, did you mention Verhagen? I was updating.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to play him for 4K as long as there's no clear pitch count or, like, innings cap at, like, 2 or 3. Like, I think there's a lot of potential upside, especially when I want expensive bats. And, you know, if he gets rocked, it's not like I'm playing him in 50% of my lineups. But if I get to, 15, 20%, I think I'm pretty comfortable with that.
Okay. Holy shit, he's been bad.
Oh, yeah. He's been terrible, but he's stretched out, and it's baseball.
Yep. I mean, and granted, everything's been in relief, so what are you going to do? Like, he's allowed 10 runs in 6 innings. But
are you talking about at the major league level?
Yeah, I'm saying he's only – no, I know what you're saying. He's stretched out at the minor league level. I was saying at the major league level this season, it's really hard to put any weight in his numbers when he's throwing like 1 or 2 outs at a time.
Yeah.
So whatever. He's cheap. Seattle's not good. Seattle strikes out a lot. Is it crazy to think that Verhagen could give you like 12 fantasy points and still be in a winning lineup? No, not at all. Mariners tied for the second highest K rate in the league versus righties. But we got to talk hitters here, and then we'll head out. LeBlanc facing, as you mentioned, a lot of righties, bad righties outside of Castellanos, but righties nonetheless. And then Verhagen facing a Seattle team that, has some power, but it's not a great park. And they have really struggled since, getting rid of some of their best power bats.
Yeah. Vogelbach, that's Emacs guy.
Yes, it is.
Coming off a double dong yesterday. I think he is very appealing. I think that Verhagen's going to get more ownership as the day goes on, right? Like, I
would think you're right, because
people start to look through the slate.
What's the huge difference between him and Brett Anderson at this point?
Not much. I'd argue he has more strikeout upside.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, so I think Verhagen's not going to just be like a diamond in the rough here. I think he's going to get ownership, and Vogelbach and Narvaez, I think, are 2 guys I'd like to attack him with just lefty power.
Yeah, I think so too. And any specifics for Tiger bats?
Castellanos, I love at 4K, and then Hicks, $2,300.
The crazy thing is, you have some expensive bats, but there's also some cheap teams to target as well. So I'm just really curious to see what happens, because if it's Berrios in your lineup, and then you have the Yankees, of course, with a high total. And then you have the Angels, who, a lot of these price tags are pretty high. I think you're right that Verhagen gets paired with Berrios a lot today.
Yeah, he has to. You can't just disregard a 4K pitcher on a terrible slate of pitching, I think.
Yeah. Hey, before you head out, if you like the show, you want to see more, you want to help support us at Awesemo, you want to help support the channel, it's greatly appreciated, and it goes a long way by hitting that thumbs up button and liking the video. Subscribe and hit the notification bell as well. We appreciate all of you. Jake, before we head out, anything else to say?
I will see you guys on Live Before Lock. Enjoy this 2-game MLB slate. Play some PGA. We still got some time if you're listening live. And take advantage of the tools on the site, of course.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Deeper dive coming up tonight, Live Before Lock. Until then, we'll see you next time on the MLB Strategy Show.